Welcome back to the Vessels Podcast. We are live in the Lion's Den. My name is Jeremy. Sitting right next to me is the one and only C. Beatty.
My name is Jeff.
My name is Jeff.
Sitting adjacent from me is the one and only Connor Michael Medea,
That's me.
also known as Liquid Gold. And then sitting next to him is Ali Champion. Middle name World Champion. Snuck it in there. Middle name World. And this is the Vessels Podcast, which is brought to you by Ask Us Why Christian Apparel, where we talk about really unrelevant topics that are so uninteresting that no one listens to it. And it's just a great time.
For us, but not the listeners.
Totally kidding. Relevant topics for young people that it's like going on in the world, like what's happening right
memes?
now? Yeah, okay.
Just blowing up.
What's going on
Finally.
right now? Like what's big in the world? What's going on right now? What's relevant?
Here's what I know about relevant topics going on in the world.
I have one.
Christian, go ahead.
So, and like,
Connor's like, I'm on a roll. Allie's laughing at everything I'm saying.
in like 3 weeks, the U.S. government is like deciding whether or not we're going to extend our debt ceiling. And so, like, if they don't, it means like there's power outages throughout the whole U.S., lots of big bad things. But they'll probably extend the debt ceiling, so it's nothing to worry about.
But what if they don't?
Yeah, we're wrecked. So
We're screwed.
well, yeah,
The sky is falling.
essentially, wouldn't
Chicken
be
Little,
good.
anyone?
It wouldn't be good.
Nice. What else is relevant? What else is going on in this world is relevant right now?
I have another one.
Yeah, go ahead, Christian.
So there's some people that are creating a technology software to be able to use Apple's like facial ID recognition to basically see and predict depression and different mental illnesses through
Your face?
Face ID.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your
I like
face
seeing
is
it.
a dead giveaway about a lot of things.
Huh.
So kind of
I
interesting.
actually heard about that one in my psych class.
So you're saying that if I got RBF, but like I'm a cool person, like it's gonna trigger and think that like I have a lot of issues going on in my life?
no,
No.
like the face, even like how your resting face is different than like an emotion. So they'd probably like to determine if you have depression.
with my resting face?
They'd probably like show you images or ask you questions and decipher like facial movement. If you get uncomfortable, how you express in your eyes, your eyebrows, like your whole.
That makes sense. Every time I open my phone, I'm like,
But yeah, pretty cool stuff if it could be used to like prevent diseases that are, mentally,
Yeah.
cognitively affecting.
hey, technology for a +1. Nice. iPhone 13 just is about to come out.
Speaking of coming out,
Yay.
Yeah.
Connor.
Why would you make me do this here?
Just kidding.
I have something that's culturally relevant. Did you know
Culturally relevant.
that some people are using Roblox, like the rip-off Minecraft, to have like sexually explicit like chats and strip clubs and stuff?
Whoa. Like on
Like-
the dark internet kind of stuff?
No, just on Roblox.
Oh, just okay. Allie, this
Allie, it
is
wasn't
a
that funny.
serious matter. She's like, I've been exposed. Gotta go change my Roblox username now.
What do you think Club Penguin is for?
Yeah, wait, what is it for?
It's called Club Penguin.
Web Queens? You guys
Web
remember
Quins? Did you call it Web Quins? It's
Webkins?
Webkins.
Did you guys ever play Toontown?
No, I always saw the commercials for it though.
Man, I loved Toontown. I also,
You're one of those kids
I
that played
sucked
Toontown?
at math, so I had to play
Pop
Times
Tropica.
Attack.
Pop.
You
Tropica.
sucked at maths, you had to what?
I had to play a
Cool
video
math
game called
games.
Times Attack, and I had to do quick multiplication. It'd be like 2 times 7, and I had to like type it in to defeat the
And I was
monster.
like, da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-
for vocabulary words.
Hey, don't do that here.
I grew up only being allowed to play educational video games. So if anyone definitely did weird stuff as a kid. It was me. Like it was called Leapfrog. You guys remember Leapfrog?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I had Leapfrog, but then they came out with like a cooler version. They called it a Digi.
Wow.
Which is like the PSP version
This
of
is a
it. So all my
throwback.
friends on the bus were like playing PSP and like, like
You played
race
with
car
that?
games. I was playing on a Digi and I was like Batman, but I was like running through like walls. And then when I faced a villain, he was like, what is the quadratic formula? Go or I kill your mother. I was like, no, the opposite of B minus plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. Mom.
Wrong.
Wrong.
Did you guys ever play Lego Star Wars?
Dude.
The game was incredible.
So
Bro,
good.
the one level when you have to play as the Anakin and Obi-Wan in spacecrafts in their ships, it's always the hardest because it's
Yeah.
always the last part when you have to fit into like the tunnel. You can never fit it, and you're just like, yep, boom, you die every time. It's the worst. Anyways, in other relevant news, I heard that Connor was doing some crazy things with this one guy, and like no one
Remy,
really
are
knows.
you gossiping?
No, I'm just, it's the truth.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
So
I'll
gossip isn't.
Wait, which guy are we talking about?
hear. No, Connor was hanging out with this guy. It was your dad. And
That's weird. He's in Alaska.
I know, crazy. Crazy. Call me crazy for saying what I saw. But no, I actually just heard it through the grapevine from like 4 other people. So I'm just kind of passing on the information. But yeah, if you didn't get it, we're talking about gossip today.
I am emotionally distraught at this information.
I know. I really thought he was like giving information, and then I was like on the edge of my seat, and I was like, "Oh God, I'm feeding into the gossip." I was gonna be like, "What were they doing?"
Oh, I almost got her.
Well, we were in Alaska, so
Probably fishing.
probably nothing. You doing stuff in the snow.
Yeah, they just got their first snowfall.
Because there's snow all year round up there.
I've
It's
never
just how
been
it
to
works.
It just snowed
Yeah,
yesterday.
I'm
at my
sure it
dad's
would
house.
have just snowed. I mean, yeah, it's more likely to, but it's not like snows there every day of all. It's not like the Antarctic.
Well, it's not great, let me tell you.
Anyways, gossip, guys, huge problem. I think that this
No,
is
it's not. No,
yes,
no, I don't believe it.
yes. I think this is really just a.
I don't
really-
believe in
I think
gossip.
this is. If anyone here has a problem with gossip, it's most likely Christian. So let's talk about it.
I fully thought he was about to say me. He like looked at me, and I was like, "Oh God."
It is me.
Nah, I'm just messing. Gossip,
Probably least likely Christian.
Oh,
maybe. Out of the 4 of us here, who do you think does gossip the most?
okay.
Don't answer that.
Everyone just awkwardly is like,
We're
All
not
right,
pointing
all right,
fingers.
guys.
"The disrespect."
Guys, we just lost all viewers and listeners. No one's here anymore. All right, now
So we can say whatever we want.
no.
It's been a really tough
Oh gosh.
tough introduction.
Yeah, it has been, but it's great
Been a
nonetheless. Gossip. We got some relevant topics. Gossip is always on the horizon. It's always happening. We're constantly feeding into it. What is gossip? Let's define some terms first, shall we?
Well, I feel offended because earlier you said I was hanging out with Christian's dad. And honestly, Christian's dad's a pretty cool guy. So I don't really know why that's gossip. I don't know why you had to bring it up in this this setting, this context. And so, you know what? You're a big, dumb, stupid idiot head. So I hope you like that.
Thanks for your feedback. If you want to continue the discussion, you can email me at connormadea@gmail.com. We can talk about it there.
Okay.
Just emailing himself.
So, what is gossip?
Yeah.
I
what is
actually
it?
asked a friend of mine after class a few days ago when I thought we were going to record the podcast. And as it turns out, defining gossip is actually really hard,
Yeah.
like really hard. And I think the difficulty comes when you're trying to decide if it's okay to like confide in someone versus like spreading information about someone, true or false. And what's kind of the line there, and what should people know about a situation or a circumstance, what they shouldn't know, those sorts of things. Just it's complicated.
Yeah.
I would agree. And I feel like especially like Connor and I were talking about this in the car on the way over here when I use a word that's not a real word. I didn't know incentivizing is no word. So, anywho, but we talked about how defining gossip is really hard because it's more than just speaking negatively about someone. Especially in like today's world, we're pretty negative about everything almost all the time. I would say like, to me, gossip has to do a lot with like deciphering that. Like, are you confiding in someone? But even then, people can make excuses all around. But the bottom line is like, if you are telling someone information for the hopes of them to affirm you or to get on your side or to make their opinion of someone be altered or to alter that person's like whole persona and who they are and like stuff like that, like their appearance, I think that's a big giveaway that you're gossiping. Because if you ever find yourself talking bad about someone, you're like, God, I can't stand him or stand her. And the person's like, oh, yeah, me neither. It feels so good. Then when they go, why? You don't want to continue the conversation, you know? And I feel like I've been called out by friends when I'm talking about someone. They're like, why are you saying that right now? And I'm like, oh. And like, that's a dead giveaway that what you were just doing wasn't pleasing, especially if your speech is not how God would talk about them. Like, then why are you going out of your way to speak like negatively about them?
Yeah, every time Allie talks mad crap about me, I always be like, why are you saying those things?
Oh my God.
Why are you saying it to my face? I'm so confused.
Like, that's gossip. You're like, but no, I'm coming to you about it. No, it's gossip. Connor, what's your definition of gossip or whatever? What else do you have to add to that?
I think there might not ever be a perfect definition for it. And I think in some ways, like wrongfully, that's where people take advantage of like giving themselves the excuse to gossip because they're like, well, it's not technically gossip if I do it this way, or it's not technically gossip if I'm not saying it to them, or all of these things, which obviously is the wrong mindset to have. And I think if we could put it like as plainly as possible, it's just when you're not like speaking life into somebody or about somebody. And I think it can get super like the line grays a little bit and blends a little bit because there isn't that clear definition. But like we've talked about with a lot of other sins, like our goal isn't to go up to that line and just look over the edge and then stop there. The goal is to not get even close to that line. So I don't really necessarily think the definition matters all that much because we should just be staying away from it as much as possible.
Well, but don't you think that it's good for us to know what it is so that we know how to avoid it?
Yeah, I think there's going to be multiple definitions, if that makes sense, which is a good thing to know. But if our heart is to know the definition so we can get around it and gossip some other way, then that's where we're obviously going wrong.
So I guess the intent has some play into that too, and just your heart behind it. I listening to a bunch of different people, pastors, sermons, all that kind of stuff about gossip. Definitely feel like I came to a couple conclusions, but still like kind of around the area of like, yeah, it's hard to tell sometimes if something is gossip or not. But basically like we hear almost gossip and slander is like interchangeable at times. But there definitely is, I think, a difference when we talk about them. And there's a reason why they're said at different times throughout scripture. And slander definitely goes more towards the direction of like beating down on someone's image. And speaking negatively about them. Gossip is more about you've been privileged with certain information, whether like you're the one spreading it means that you're the one that's been privileged with certain information regarding a certain situation, a couple of people, and you're sharing that information with people who are not privileged or do not deserve to know that information because they're not either a part of the problem or they're not a part of the solution. Because sometimes, like, obviously, if like a situation is going on and you need to go to someone else to help or ask for help, like, hey, Allie has been like super mean recently. I don't know what's been going on. She's been like super mean to all these people, and like I'm witnessing it in like the work environment, and I'm just concerned for her. Like, are you able to talk to her about it, and like see what's going on? Do you guys think that right there is wrong, or do you think that that is okay?
I think that it. I think that it could be wrong. Because if you have a relationship with that person, why would you not confront them about it before you go talk to somebody else?
Yeah.
And like, I get there's situations sometimes where you have to gain clarity, but still, if your intent in not confronting that person is because you either don't want to hurt their feelings, or you don't want them to know that you're the one, you know, talking behind their back or any of that stuff, like, in words that I can't find right now, you're being like a coward. Like, we're called to keep each other accountable and called to judge other Christians.
Yeah.
That's like a huge misconception, is where Christians think only God can judge me. Like,
Yeah.
no, other Christians are supposed to judge Christians. 1 Corinthians 5, like, that's supposed to happen. And so when we go to other people about a situation we can handle ourselves without other people even needing to get involved, that's where it becomes gossip.
Love that. Why is gossip so bad? Like, why is it such a big deal?
I think that it's an easy release, an easy way to feel good about yourself.
Yeah.
And I think it's a habit that we get into without knowing.
But why is it bad? Like, why is gossip bad? No, why do we do it? But more, why is it so bad?
Why is it so bad?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, one verse that comes up to mind, just from scripture, a perspective of scripture that speaks to how we're talking. Ephesians 4:29, let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths, but only such as is good for building up, as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear. So that's essentially speaking to building others up with your words. And then 1 Timothy 4:12, do not let anyone look down on you because you are young, but set an example for believers in speech and conduct, love, faith, and purity. And in speech, how can we honor the Lord? How can we bring glory to the Lord in how we talk and how we talk about others? And gossip, I don't think, is bringing glory to the Lord. Slandering other people, talking negatively about them, it's not being wise with your words.
Yeah. Allie, even if someone has, like, let's say they think that they have a good intention behind gossiping or talking about someone else, like, why is it still bad?
Well, I feel like girls, at least some that I hang out with, like, we tend to, like, excuse the meanness we're saying by, like, covering it up and being like, but we love her. And, like, we think that makes it okay. But
We say the same thing.
Yeah.
We do that too.
Everyone does it. But I'd say it's still bad because of the heart behind it. Because in what I said, I didn't say it because I truly do love and care about the person. I said it because I'm mad. And that's not okay. You know what I'm saying? And it brings forth damage and destruction and death. It doesn't bring about, like, life and kindness. And I don't know. I feel like that's why it's really bad, because all it's doing is damaging. First of all, it puts your heart in a really, really bad place. And that will continue to grow and fester the more that you feed that by gossiping and allowing others to gossip with you. But also, you're just speaking death into their life. Yeah, you're not saying it directly to them, but I would arguably say that's even worse. So,
Yeah. I think that's something we miss. And I learned this early on in high school from my mentor. But what's so crazy is most of the time when we hear something, this is in the context that, like, we aren't fully aware of, like, if it's gossip or not, we'll take whatever we hear as truth.
yeah.
And so what it does is the second we hear something about someone else that, like, they've done or that they've been a part of or something of that nature, more often than not, it changes the way we think about that person. So then when we see that person again, we think about those last things that we've heard about them. And regardless of if they're true or not, we see them as less of a person. And I think that that's what's pretty damaging about it, is because we almost get this idea that, like, there's a hierarchy of righteousness, that somehow, like, we're less sinful, and that because we heard that they did something that, like, you know, oh, look down on them, or oof, I can't believe that they did that to that person. Like, I cannot believe that he cheated on her. I cannot believe she said those things about that girl or that guy, whatever it is. And so that's all they know, but, like, they don't have personal relationships with them. And even if they do, it's like, well, the right friend is going to reject that and be like, I don't know if that's true or not. That doesn't sound like them. I'm going to go to them first and figure that out. But, someone that's not mature in that or doesn't have that relationship is just going to believe it as truth. You know what I'm saying? And so then ultimately you see less value in that person because they've done something wrong. So, like, it ultimately affects the way that God desires us to see them through his eyes. And it almost creates this unhealthy view of like self-righteousness in our own hearts along with that. I've also heard growing up that it's worse to gossip about someone than to murder them. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on that, but what I've heard is that to kill someone by the flesh is to end their life, but to gossip is to kill their spirit while they're still alive. So like having to live with the fact that someone slandered about you and has spoken negatively about you and has crushed their spirit while they're still walking on this earth is worse than if they were to just end their life. Now, obviously there's, are they in heaven or are they in hell or whatever kind of situation. But the fact stands no matter what, that like I think that we lack understanding the weight of what gossip does. And that's why we've become so normal to doing it. Like I catch myself doing it, all the time too. And, I see it all the time, but it's become so natural for us, even in like the church, to do it because we don't ever talk about it, but then we also don't talk about why it's bad. You know what I'm saying? It's like, if we understood the true impact of what fast food does to us, do you like think that people would really eat fast food? You know what I'm saying? Like if they saw, like I've seen a video, I think one time, of what happens when you leave like a McDonald's burger out for like a month or something like that. And it showed that like it was still fine. Like there was no mold or anything on it. And it was like, that's concerning. Like that's in your body. Like if acid can't even break that stuff down, like that's concerning. But I will say nonetheless that a lot of us do know the weight of it and we still do it nonetheless. And sometimes that's just us caught up in sin, or that's our ignorance or a hard heart. But, I think just nonetheless, I think that we miss the weight of like what kind of damage I think gossip can do to other people, especially to the body of believers.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what's tricky about sin, right? Is we all know it's sin and we shouldn't do it, but there's something thrilling, fun, exciting about it. And it's addicting. So we keep going back, whether that's sexual impurity, whether that's gossip, it can be anything, but people continue to do things like that because of the things they get out of it.
Just like that burger. It's so good.
Just like that burger.
Just like that burger.
I think it's one of those things too, where we hype on, or, if you're looking into it, you hear a sermon about it, it hypes on the negatives of, or why gossiping is bad, but we don't usually focus on why is not gossiping good? Why is not gossiping better than the negatives of gossiping being bad? And I know in my experience, when I really felt convicted about the gossip that I was involved with in my life, it really opened my eyes and made my relationships a lot better. Because you feel like when you're gossiping about people, feel like you get this bond with this person you're gossiping with, but really that person then has in the back of their mind that you might go and talk negatively about them with someone else down the line. So it creates almost this division, this sort of fracture in that relationship. Whereas if someone's talking negatively to you about someone else and you're like, hey, like I just want to pause here for a moment and ask you, hey, do you think that this is gossip? Is this talking negatively? And if what you're about to say is negative about this person, I don't want to hear it, then that person is going to have so much more trust and respect for you. And it's going to be honoring to the Lord. And it's really, really cool to see in practice. And is very fruitful for relationships.
Yeah, I think something you said was huge, because it's like how easy is it to, like, when a conversation is awkward or you don't know what to say with somebody, whether it's like a close friend or somebody totally like a newer friend, and you just run out of stuff to say. How easy to just be like, did you hear about this? Like, did you hear what happened with this person? And it's like, that's the first thing we jump to, because it's in a way easier, and it, breaks the ice or whatever. And it's just so much easier to talk about that stuff than it is to talk about something like whole and something fruitful and something like kingdom minded. And one thing that I remember from years ago, Remy, you might have been at this when we had like a student leader training. I think it was when we were life leaders, like sophomore year. And Bob Goff came and talked like at GCU.
No way.
And one thing he told us was like, get to like the next question. Like always be focused on like the third or fourth question instead of like those first two in conversations, because it's really surface level and really easy to be with somebody. Like if you're in the elevator or if you're in passing or at the coffee shop or whatever. And it's just like, the only interaction you got with that person is, hey, how are you? Good. All right, see you later. It's like, how much opportunity do we have around us, and how not much do we take those opportunities that the Lord has given us and actually use them for kingdom work, like in our everyday lives.
So if you did not know, the Vessels podcast is a part of the Christian apparel company, Ask Us Why. And if you guys are new and you've never discovered us before, we highly encourage you to check us out. And you can either see us on our website at askuswhy.org, or you can check us out on social media at Ask Us Why with 2 Ys. And instead of running ads with our podcast for other companies and trying to promote them, we figured that this would just be a time to share what we do as a company and encourage you that if you want to support us and help us continue doing what we do with this podcast, the best way to do that is for you to check out our apparel and snag something on there, because all the proceeds that we receive from that goes towards the vision of this ministry, which is so much bigger than apparel line. And so if you guys want to, we just released a brand new collection 5 Roots, that's got 5 different shirts, all in fun colors, that are some pretty cool conversation starter shirts. We got ones about ask me about Jesus, let me tell you a story, let's grow the kingdom together, ask me for some good news, and ask me why. So those are our 5 different shirts. And if you guys would be so cool as to check us out and just give us a look on our shop, it would mean the world to us, because your support is what continues to help us do what we do. With that being said, we'll jump back into the episode. Yeah, that's a great point. So how do we battle gossip? How do we not gossip? Let's first talk from the standpoint of our own hearts. How do we get better about not gossiping?
I think the first thing, and it's probably something we skip over a lot of time, is prayer. And the second thing is confession. And this is something we've been doing in men's group, which has been really helpful, is to have a biblical community where you confess with each other, whether it be something small in quotation marks that we think is gossip, like we think it's small, or something like bigger in our life that's going on. But let me get to the Psalm. I think it's Psalm 141, verse 3. David says, set a guard, O Lord, over my mouth, keep watch over my door, over the door of my lips. And then I know in Luke 6:45, he talks about how out of the abundance of our heart, like the mouth speaks. And so just one way to battle gossip is to pray, God, can you soften my heart to where I have conversations with people that isn't, tearing them down or isn't gossiping, and then confessing when that does happen, so you have accountability in your life. And then one thing that JP does, like with Harris Creek, is they have like the 24-hour rule, like at their church. So if like somebody on the staff hears somebody else gossiping, even if it's just like something smaller in passing, they say, you need to go tell this person that you said this about them, or I'm going to follow up with that person in like 24 hours about what you said. And so it not only creates accountability so that people don't hear things from other people, like they're hearing it from you, and it creates accountability, but it also like just reminds you of like how important your speech is, like with other people, and how big of an impact it does have.
Yeah. And he still checks in 24 hours and regardless. It's not like or I will check in. He always does it within 24 hours. So yeah, I love that rule a ton too. Yeah, I think we have to be super, super intentional about just our words and how we talk. James makes it clear in his book about like how our words can start a spark, which can light a whole forest on fire, and that it's like a small rudder of a ship, but it guides everything. And so no man is able to tame the tongue. And so if we don't hold like serious weight to our words and realize that like we have control over what we say, we'll just let whatever come out. And like that's where our sinful desires will come from, and that's what makes it super easy for us to talk negatively. It's why it's so easy to complain. It's why it's so easy to talk about other people and to break them down. I think the biggest reason why we gossip in the first place is because it makes us feel better about ourselves. I think that's almost the only ever reason why we ever seem to gossip. We don't really like care about like what other people are really doing in their lives. Like we care more about what's going on in our own lives more than anything else. That's just natural. So like when we have, a situation come up about, did you hear what this person did? Like it's always just to build up ourselves to make us feel better, because again, going back to that idea that we believe that we're somehow more self-righteous than others because they've done something against us. And so I've just had to learn over time to recognize that in my heart and just think like, even if like it's said, like obviously like when the bell is rung, you can't unring the bell. Like even still catching yourself in that and apologizing and seeking to repent from that and like building that habit of over and over again, catching yourself in it, it's just going to get better. It's going to get easier and easier over time. Same thing with like swearing. Like if you catch yourself, doing it every single time over and over and over again, it's just going to get easier and you're going to be way more intentional with the words that are going to come out of your mouth next. I've seen all the time with people that interview that have like super like no filter, we'll just say whatever when they curse, but they'll be in a situation where they can't curse, like they're on live television or something like that, and they're told like, hey, don't swear on the program or whatever. They always have to be super intentional with like every word that they're saying, and so they usually talk slower, they take more time to articulate what they're trying to say, they process what they're going to say, and then they say it. And so I think that we have to be more aware of those steps prior to talking. Usually we talk and then we think, versus think and then we talk, and so, or think before we speak. And so, yeah, I agree that has to be kind of like the first and foremost, is that we have to be really intentional with the words that we're saying and realize that like, yeah, it's harder to talk better about other people. Like, I don't know how it is for you guys, but like I struggle at times with jealousy in my heart for like other people, and when they're successful and stuff, sometimes I get jealous and I'm like, I deserve those things. Like I've been working hard or whatever it is. And so I have to remember in my heart that that's not what God like called me to be like in Christ. That's not like Christ like behavior that I'm supposed to reflect. And like I have to catch myself in those things and remember that like my heart's not in the right place. And I'm simply doing that just because I believe that I'm building myself up over trying to speak positive to them. But when I choose to intentionally like celebrate others and to join in them and their successes and to focus on those things, like, dude, you're going to be the favorite person at the party, because people are like, just go talk to Christian. Like he'll just literally make you feel better about yourself because he's going to speak positivity into your life. Like that's what we're called to do. Like we're not called to speak negatively. And so I think something too is you have to realize that like people aren't going to want to be around you if all you ever do is complain and gossip about other people and talk bad about them. Like no one's going to want to hang around you. And so like, that's not a welcoming environment. That's not what Christ has called us to be. And so, more than anything, we have to set the example for what it means to be a follower of Christ. And like, we can't do that if we're focused on trying to build ourselves up. And so remembering that humility and like challenging yourself to be intentional with what you say, is definitely a good first step on how to battle gossip. Now, what do you guys think about when you're in gossip? Like you're not the one gossiping, but someone else is gossiping, because this is going to always be tricky. You're hanging out with your friends and all of a sudden they start saying something about someone else. How do you navigate that conversation? Like, do you just stay in it? Do you say like, yo, stop it right now, you're gossiping? Or
I think it should be one of those two things. And I think it also depends on your relationship with those people and if they have a relationship with Jesus. Because if you're with people who don't have a relationship with Jesus and they're gossiping, they're not held to the same standard you are. You can't tell them they can't do that because that's what is expected of them.
Right.
So in that case, you walk away. You don't participate. And if somebody asks you about it, you tell them the standard that you have, and that can be a conversation that can be a kingdom conversation. But if you're around people who have relationships with Jesus and they start gossiping, that's where you're called to step in and keep those people accountable. And that might be a really hard conversation and something that makes you really uncomfortable. But in the end, like that friendship, that relationship is going to be a whole lot stronger if that person obviously understands the gravity of their words and of what they're saying. And so I think it depends obviously on the relationship with Jesus or not.
Yeah, totally. So do you guys think that let's say you're in a conversation with someone and all of a sudden they start gossiping about someone else, like what is your actual response right then and there? Like, are we supposed to just say like, hey, you need to stop right now, you're gossiping, or is there other ways around this? Because it can be kind of nerve-wracking if you're like in the middle of a conversation with someone that's like a really close friend, and like all of a sudden like you've never done this before. It's not like the first time, or like you've been doing this for a while now, and they're just like being ignorant of what you've asked. But out of nowhere, you're like, hey, we should stop talking about them. Like that can be super scary.
Personally, I find it really hard to be like, hey, are you gossip? You know what I'm saying? To call them out, because the reality is I do it too.
Yeah.
And I'm not about to call someone else out when I'm not perfect myself. Like, I find that personally really hard. But also in being their friend, I want to validate them.
Yeah.
And that's what's really tricky for me, is when someone's telling me like, hey, I had this interaction with so-and-so and this is how it made me feel. All I want to do is be like, oh my gosh, like, I'm so sorry. And just pour into them and tell them like, oh, what a jerk. Like, that sucks. But what I have found that like works really well is being like, oh, I'm sorry, but hey, you know what? They're probably having a bad day. Like, try to talk them into seeing their side. That's also because I want to be a counselor. But seeing like their side of like, hey, like, I know that they hurt your feelings and you're really mad and you have every right to be mad. But can you just think for a second of a time where you made someone feel irrelevant and you made someone feel that way? Because you've looked around looking for someone else to talk to because that person was your filler. So I know right now you felt like you were a filler and you're really hurt, but you've done that to someone else. Let's talk about that. And I start talking about how they've done it to someone. And then we have a really deep conversation about that and about character and about how that matters. And then they end up forgiving that person and it's all great. But I find that to be a more loving way, instead of being like, hey, you're gossiping. Stop, you idiot. Like, being like, hey, you know what? I know you're really mad. Let's talk about that. Why are you mad at them? Have you ever done that to someone? Let's talk about it.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah. From what I've learned is when I experience it is to always focus on speaking like the opposite side of them. So speaking about like the like affirmations of just like good things about them, because we can be so quick to weigh people down on their mistakes, but it's like the second we're put on that pedestal, same thing could happen for the things that we've done. I have a million mistakes that I've made in my life and counting. So like I have nowhere to sit to or nowhere to stand above someone else and call them out for their judgments and think that like, you know, how could they do those things? Like, how could they be like that? How could they be human and sinful? How could they? How dare they?
How dare they?
Like,
How
it's
dare
not
the human
like
be human.
because I am an angel from the Lord, sent by the Lord. I am perfect in every way.
Well, and you can leave a really bad taste in someone's mouth if you call them out like that. Then they're like, okay, let's talk about what you've done. You might not gossip, but you fill in the blank. You know what I mean?
And that's where I think that in light of this, if this is like the first step of doing it, is like sharing that heart. It's like, hey, I've had a really strong conviction recently just about gossip and how it's been like so negative and how God doesn't like calls us against those things and how he sees those things as wrong. And I'm just starting to notice it more. And so I would prefer if this conversation went a different direction, or I just want to encourage you that if this is a problem that you're having with that person, like go and talk to that person about it. Because I'm not being a part of the solution by just allowing you to vent to me, like even confiding in people that you trust. Like even within like marriage, I think that you have to be super careful because you can't just justify being able to gossip because you're married to someone and they're your person or your other side. Like sin is still sin. There's no way to justify those things. And so that's where you have to be careful, where it's like, hey, like I want to encourage you to go and talk to that person, because I'm not doing any good by you just venting about it. Because all you're doing is seeking someone to affirm you in what you're saying and what you believe is the right of the situation and that your side is the right situation. But that's what causes division, because you don't know the other person's side of the story. Like you were saying, it's like, we don't know if they're having a bad day or they're under a lot of stress right now, or like, who knows, they could be going through a really hard time in their life, or maybe they've just been hurt by other people. Hurt people. And there's a book, it's called, I think, Unoffendable. I can't remember who it's by, but I had the audiobook of it and I listened about halfway through it. And it's just really good. It just talks about like how we have no right to be offended, because like there is so much more to the picture than just us. And we always just focus on ourselves when this stuff happens. And so in the case that we're witnessing someone else gossip to us, focusing the conversation elsewhere or shifting the attention of it to something else is also a good way to do that. But you still need to voice and let people understand that you're at least in the transition of not like allowing such behavior to like be something that you want to like fuel. Because what happens over time is then people know that, oh, I'm not going to go talk to Christian about this because he doesn't like it. Like he doesn't like gossip. Like he's not about it, which is great, because that's the ultimate goal. It's like, you don't want to be a part of those things. Like be the type of person that people won't come to you to vent and to gossip about other people, because that's not healthy. Like that's not good. And that's not a representation of who Christ is. And so I think that's the goal is like, oh, but like now I feel like this person isn't going to want to come to me anymore because they feel like they can't trust me because they won't talk to me about these things. Cause now I told them that I don't like gossip. And it's like, good. Like you are like a representation of Christ, and like we are called not to gossip, and you feeling that gossip does not do anything for the glory of God. Like be that example, like set that example for them, and hopefully do it in a way that is gracious and encouraging to them, where you're not just beating them down as I'm more righteous than you, don't come to me with these things, but more like, hey, like I've been personally convicted about this and I'm going to be praying about it a ton, but like do a heart check too. Cause like, I understand you're frustrated. I understand you're going through stuff, or maybe you're just trying to feed that insecurity of like, you feel like you're not significant enough, or that you need to knock other people down to feel better about yourself. It's like, bring those things to the Lord. Like that's what the whole purpose of being like renewed in the spirit, and like what Colossians 3 talks about, and just like dying to our old self and being raised into Christ. And that process of sanctification is like bringing those things to him instead of fueling them. So yeah, I also think too, one thing that I've learned over time with gossip is always to never take someone's word for what they say as truth. Like I will always reject it. And if I care enough about the situation, I will approach the other individual and I will ask them about it and be like, hey, I heard this, like heard you might've done this thing or whatever. Like, I just want to know, like, is this happening? Like, can I be a part of the solution? Can I help you? Whatever's going on. Like, if you truly desire to be a part of the solution because you've heard something, go and approach that person directly about it. And then find out, no, that's not true. I don't know why they're saying that. Or, yeah, it's been happening. Like, I'm super embarrassed. I'm sorry. It's like, dude, it's cool. Like, let me pray for you. Or like, is there anything I can do to help with this? Like, we're all imperfect. We all have problems, kind of stuff like that. But for us to simply just naively take in whatever people say as truth, it makes us just as bad as those that are gossiping, because it ultimately affects the image of other people. And that's not what God's heart is about. So yeah. Any last words you guys have about gossip and how we can do better about it?
I think one thing that's important is like, if you have situations where a person who has a relationship with Jesus, a friend of yours, starts gossiping to you or about somebody else with you there, and you bring it up to where you're like, hey, I have a conviction about this. I don't think we should be talking about this person this way. I understand you're frustrated. I get these things. And they react in a negative way to that. That doesn't mean that you did the wrong thing. Just because somebody didn't, because somebody else got offended about you stopping that gossip doesn't mean you shouldn't have done that. Like, we're not called to obedience because of the results. We're called to obedience regardless of the results.
That's pretty good. I should get a tattoo of that.
Yeah.
I should get one on like my arm. I'll do like an O over an R. That's pretty good, right?
It sounds kind of
You told me that stand for obesity over running.
For anyone who doesn't know, Connor has that tattoo. It's an O over an R.
It's cool.
It's pretty dope.
Okay, my final word on it.
Yeah.
And something that you definitely touched on is, like, if you want a practical step that you can start doing tomorrow, you might have heard that people write out like a list of gratitudes, things that they're grateful for in the morning, just to start the day off strong and just thanking the Lord for what he's given us. Start to practice, write down a couple people that you admire or don't admire, and write things that you're grateful for them, or things that you admire or want to honor about them. And start just wiring your brain to look for those things in other people. Because it's really easy to look at someone and see their flaws, to judge them. That's just kind of how I feel like we're wired, is just to look for the imperfections and to solve those problems. That's why it's easy. It's harder to look for the good in someone and then to put that on a pedestal and put others above yourself, which is what we're called to do. And it even feels awkward to like say, hey, Connor, I want to honor you for this, or Allie, I want to honor you for that. It can almost be uncomfortable when you're not used to it. It can be uncomfortable receiving it, but man, it's like super cool to do, and worth making a practice of it.
Totally. Allie, anything else you want to add?
I would just encourage people to, like, when you find yourself in situations of people gossiping, to kind of make it a step of to ask further questions of why they were offended. Because it is really easy, especially like if you're frustrated with someone, to be like, ignore them or just walk away from the situation or be like, hey, stop gossiping. But it's more than that. It's more than that to them because they are hurt, regardless of how mean they might sound. Just ask them, like, why did that hurt you so bad? And then once you bring that to light, tell them to bring it to Jesus or bring it to Jesus with them if they're not a believer. Because I feel like, in my opinion, people talk about other people because they're hurting. Hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
And I would just, people matter. At the end of the day, Jesus isn't coming back for a building. He's coming back for the body of Christ, which is all of us. And so, I don't know, just hang out with other people, develop community, and love one another. Know what I'm saying?
Word.
Amen.
Word.
Dope. So yeah, gossip, guys. Stay away from it.
You idiot.
Wait, you never did it.
It's okay. It just never came up
Oh my
naturally. I
God.
just have to
Come
wait for
on.
another
Come on.
podcast.
I'm going to talk about this with someone else behind your back.
This is totally going to
Do
get
it.
gossiped about.
If you don't do it, I'm going to do it.
No, you can't do it. That's mine.
Okay, go.
No.
Do
You
it.
have to. You said you would.
Connor, please.
I'm going to do it. 5, 4.
I can't do it.
You were so close. Do it.
Please do it.
Do it. Do it. Do it.
Execute. Come on.
66. No.
Come
I'll
on.
wait for a time where it comes up and it'll be more funny than the force.
No, it's everyone's listening right now. I was like, that was a waste of my time.
Bro, you're wasting our podcasters' time right now. Do it.
Do it. I'm going to do it. Ready? Joe's barbecue massage. Do it.
What?
Joe's barbecue foot massage.
Good one. That's a good one.
Whatever. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for being a part of the Vessels podcast with us today. We hope this was somewhat beneficial for you. And if it was, share this with your friends and your family and your mamas and your sisters and your neighbors. Give this podcast a like. Leave us a review because that'd be dope. Let us know your thoughts. You can email any of your complaints or concerns to connormedea@gmail.com. And with that being said, we love you guys and we will see you in the next episode. Oh, also, almost forgot to mention, we're dropping some new merch here pretty soon, October 7th at 12 p.m. I am wearing one of them, which is our Roses Over Thorns tie-dye tee. We got a hoodie we're dropping. We got 2 other shirts we drop in. One is a Unity tee. One is a Born Again tee. They pretty dope. Check them out. Support Ask Us Why. Check out our shop at askuswhyshop.com. We love you guys, and we will see you in the next episode. Peace out.
See ya.
Peace out.
Bye.
Bye. Every week, it's the same thing. Bye.